I can tell for a fact that when it comes to dark and edgy moments in cartoons, especially from My Little Pony, despite the fact that it's mostly dark, it takes time in order to make the execution of it work. And from what I've heard involving Generation 5 being more adult when it comes to demographic of any age, it's going to be a really interesting task to actually see what they're going to accomplish in order to make it good. I'm going to point this out right away that I'm mostly into edgy and dark material if it's done right. And I know full well that My Little Pony Generation 5 isn't going to be this edgy, but with the mistakes that they've learned from Generation 4 and the fact that they can actually make dark moments a lot more tragically, then I'm pretty sure that they can handle some edgy situations when it comes to characters with no restrictions. For me personally, I think that one of the examples of when they tried to do something edgy is involving Tempest Shadow from the My Little Pony movie. And the fact that she has a backstory that actually makes her character really believable. And the stuff that she does when it comes to doing something edgeful is where she was planning on completely turning everyone into her slave, or Storm King's slave, in order to actually get what she wants. Granted, it's a cliche that we've seen so many times on having the characters be cliches, but for the way that she actually turned Storm King into stone, which also cracked into pieces, that is the advice of edgy that I actually admire when it comes to doing stuff that is supposed to be taken seriously. Granted, the My Little Pony movie was so many wixes that took time in order to make it work, despite the fact that I have mixed opinions on. But if you ask me, I honestly think that if there's going to be some kind of edge in Generation 5, they really need to actually take some notes into what other cartoons did. Mainly the fact that we saw blood from Steven Universe the movie, along with most of the moments that we've seen involving serious situations and depression. Speaking of depression, you don't have to go too far in order to make the edgy stuff way more depressing. Granted, dark usually does depression things right, but when you completely look of how they make the characters feel in these situations, it is going to be mostly a mystery of what the locations of Generation 5 is going to be like if one of the locations is going to have a serious crisis situation where it's mostly edgy and ponies who are forced to stay there just can't stand it. Now, like I said, you can't go too far, otherwise it will be done in all the wrong reasons when it comes to making the characters feel more miserable with no lighter side of the situation. When people completely think about depression in serious situations, it's mostly on the fact of how we relate to those characters and how we can actually gain some sympathy from those characters. There's really no surprise that we're going to get some sympathies from these characters no matter what if they're done right in Generation 5. But from my perspective, I really think that if you scrap completely the mean six of what we've seen from Generation 4 when it comes to the personalities, and then replace them with really serious personalities, then I can guarantee you that it can lead to serious edgy moments. I mean, in the original footage of Generation 8, when it comes to the leaks, this was the original footage of Twilight being disappeared or muggy, but in the final product, it's not much. For me personally, the fact that they make these changes because they want to have My Little Pony still cater to young kids is really something that they need to experience on not making the episode too edgy, otherwise they will have complaints. And when other cartoons, mainly from Adventure Time and Steven Universe, or other cartoons that have been mostly edgy for trying to appeal to everyone, it's basically attacks in order to actually make the show a lot more experience with so many stuff going on at one time. Granted, Generation 4 did that. Generation 4 did that when it comes to the characters dealing with so much depression and the fact that they had to that they had to find a solution to stop it. But when it comes to Generation 5 solutions, I can guarantee you that it's going to be a lot more seriousness. And for what I've saw from Generation 4 and the fact that it wasn't this completely edgy to the point that people were actually expressing how serious this is, you can really think that Generation 5 might be able to take a few steps further in order to make it an actual media for adults to enjoy. I mean, for what Generation 4 did was doing pop culture references, sometimes making the, not really sometimes, but the ponies actually a lot more different and likable compared to the older generations. Not to mention that it convinced Hasbro to continue the show after season 4. It was so many taxes that they handled, but they didn't do edgy material. They did dark material, but not edgy material. And as for dark material, I can guarantee you that it's going to be a little bit more darker than Generation 4 if it actually is a possibility, if they actually do these changes to its full extent. If you really look at some of the dark moments from the other cartoons, and the fact that Generation 4 did have those dark moments, you will probably expect that they're going to be a lot more serious when it comes to Generation 5. And the moments I've seen from Generation 4, they were dark, definitely. But considering that they don't want to push too many limits, it's going to be a really impressive experience of what they're going to do involving Generation 5. First, let's go talk about Put Your Hoof Down, which is the season 2 episode of My Little Pony, and it's a terrible episode. It's really no surprise that people cannot stand that episode, and it is edgy, but considering that these characters are portrayed for a long audience, they had to make the tone of that mostly kid-friendly, and for how the other characters felt miserable from seeing Fluttershy completely insulting them, it was really a difficult episode to sit through. Even the fact that this episode is, at this point, is already 9 years old and about to be 10 in the following year. However, that was still for that episode was still for a longer audience, and the more we see of these episodes gain some kind of experience over these last seasons, the more mistakes that they learn. And when it comes to fanfics, they usually want to express their edgy positivity or somewhat involving My Little Pony. So I really think that what Hasbro is trying to do when it comes to not crossing a line, they might be able to handle the edgy stuff in the next generation since they got more experience of what they did in the past. Trust me when I say this. When you completely saw the moments involving Tempest from the movie and how she have a really good backstory, and you really want to see more of her, but unfortunately you couldn't because she's only exclusive to the My Little Pony movie. I really think that you'll probably want to see more of her, mainly when it comes to her edgy personality. And let's just say that when people demand to be taken seriously, I can guarantee you that this is the route that Hasbro is trying to take, while also trying to be kid-friendly at the same time. It's really it's obvious that there could be some blood, possibly. Seriously, I'm just thinking about this because what I saw from Steven Universe, it was actually shocking. And if they do the same thing with My Little Pony, it could be the same thing. But at the same time, I can tell if they're going to do this stuff, they're gonna try to do it at the right time. And they have to actually make the lighthearted stuff work in a way that kids can actually enjoy, while also try to see the dark stuff mostly a common thing of what they see from other PG shows, but at the same time, not too far, otherwise parents will easily complain, and Generation 5 will probably end up like Generation 4. And I'm just saying this just to be really honest with you. If Generation 5 is just going to be like Generation 4 all over again, this would have been better off as a continuation of Generation 4 instead of just a reboot in general. Because despite with the different types of characters, we still need to actually give some kind of tone in order to make some of this stuff work in a way where we can actually be entertained from dark material, but also be entertained from the good, lighthearted stuff from the show. So, I'm pretty sure that Generation 5 is going to try to take the route of trying to be edgy for the right reasons, and doing dark things a little bit more darker than what Generation 4 did. Granted, my predictions aren't always true, but at the same time, my perception of actually seeing this type of stuff happening in Generation 5 is still a possibility. And what I've saw from Generation 4 is starting to become a thing of the past, just like the old generations, despite the fact that I didn't watch those old generations. So, what else do I have to discuss other than the dark and edgy stuff? Well, when it comes to the villains doing some serious stuff that can easily cause someone to reach the breaking point, which I highly doubt that will ever be the case, that will probably be something that the writers can try to do, but not taking steps further. Seriously, proofreads has to be a thing when it comes to doing these types of ideas when it comes to Generation 5. And that's basically all I have to discuss. So, I really hope that Generation 5 will take a different route, and when it comes to next month's video on Generation 5, I'm gonna tell you right now that it's gonna be about the tone of friendship, and how when it comes to lighthearted stuff, it has to be also done in a way where it's not the same as friendship is magic. But I'm gonna get to that, but I'm gonna explain all that once we reach into April's schedule. I'm Lonely Fanboy 4 here, and I'll see you guys next time.
Let's get this started again. Me and my whole